Well, greetings and salutations, everyone. I do hope everyone is doing well, and welcome to tonight's second half. Before we jump into it, a couple quick links. As many of you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support this channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost a cent. Click that like button, takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads I put out daily, click the bell icon, and folks, please leave a comment and share the video. Why? Well, because all of these things really do help the channel to continue to grow and go. They definitely do matter, and they are appreciative. Now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump in to today's second half, shall we? Alright guys, today's upload takes place in an area called Dent Township, Missouri, which is located kind of smack dab right in the middle of Mark Twain National Forest. Talked to this gentleman at about 11 o'clock Sunday evening, and then at about 10 Monday night. Pieced everything together with him so I could share this with you guys. Pretty horrifying experience this young man and a couple of his friends went through back in 2008. As many of you may know, some may not, but Boy Scouts, when you're in the Boy Scouts, to receive your Eagle Scout, you have to do kind of a public project, something to show your ability and initiative to not only work to better yourself, but to better the community. And this is exactly what this young man and a couple of his friends were doing the day he experienced his encounter with what he believes, and I do believe, was a Dogman. So let's get into it. So 2008, gentleman named Josh and three of his friends and little brother and his little brother's friend all piled into Josh's Jeep Grand Cherokee, an older one. It was his granddad's, given to him, 1990 beater, and they headed out to an area in Dent Township called Sam Crocker Cemetery. That was where Josh and his Boy Scout friends were going to do his community project. They were going to clean up the cemetery, refresh some of the stones, dig around the stones that were in the ground to kind of raise them up a little bit, where the grass had kind of grown over some of them. Now, his little brother and one of his friends, his little brother's friend, went along. They were going to go and fish at this little creek called Cordius Creek. And it's a nice, beautiful Saturday, summer day. They head out at around 11 a.m. They planned on staying there for about 5 or 6 hours. Of course, they had brought in some lunch and stuff like that. These kids are Boy Scouts. I joked with them because when I was a scout, me and my friends were not the upstanding scouts that the back in the day Boy Scouts portrayed. We smoked ciggies, and we used to bring flasks with us on camp trips. But I had to ask. I said, listen, this is what we used to do. He's like, I was going for my Eagle Scout. And I was like, well, I was a Life Scout until my troop folded up. But, I was going for my Eagle Scout too. And, but nonetheless, good kids. Times were different, I guess. And, so they got to the cemetery. It was about 11:30, 11:45 after they had dropped his brother off. There was 3 friends of Josh's and his little brother and his friend. So there was 6 in total in this old Jeep that he had. And they got cleaning around and doing their things. At around 1:30, 2 park rangers, because like I said, it's set smack dab in the middle of Mark Twain National Forest, came in, checking on them, making sure everything was okay, if they needed anything. And they, said, no, we're good. The ranger said, if you need anything, we're going to be in this area. We'll come back around and check. There's a highway or a route called Route Z or Highway Z that leads up into 80. And these rangers were going to go up to a hollow just above where Sam Crocker Cemetery is. Roughly almost around where they dropped Josh's little brother off. He said, my little brother's up there fishing. You don't mind checking in on him, just making sure he's okay. Let him know, that I'll come up in about 2 hours and grab him or see if he needs anything when we take a break for lunch. Yeah, sure, kid. So they continue to do their thing. They're cleaning their cemeteries out, or cleaning the cemetery, really doing a lot of raking and stuff. One of the friends was mending part of a fence, and he had kind of seen something off in the distance, because there's kind of a clearing just opposite of the cemetery. There's a rather large clearing and then forest. And he had seen what he thought was a bear, because during that period of time, there had been a couple of bear sightings. A couple of people had taken some pictures of some bear. And he ran over to Josh and said, hey, I think I just saw a bear. And it kind of looked like it was heading up towards where Highway Z and 80 meet, kind of like where your brother is. And Josh is like, all right, let's take a ride up. We've been here for a couple of hours now. Let's go grab my brother. We'll bring him down. We'll have some lunch. And then he can go to the other end of the creek, kind of south of them. And so that's what they did. They drove up, no issues, picked the boys up. Josh said, hey, did you see the park rangers or whatnot? No, didn't see anybody, Josh thought that was kind of weird, that because he's known these park rangers. He's done work with them, and these park rangers have come and worked with their troop and stuff like that. So these boys aren't strangers to these, this area at all, or the park rangers that work in the national forest there. So they pick up the brother, they get back to the cemetery, and there's kind of like a little, not pavilion, but kind of sort of a pavilion, like a roofed off open-sided little area, and they kind of sat there and had their lunch. Now, the kid who had seen what he thought was a bear, had his water jacket, left it by the fence there where he was working. And as he was walking from point A to B, he got kind of like in the middle of the cemetery, and there's trees in this cemetery. I mean, obviously it's in a national forest, so there's gonna be trees. He smells this really foul smell, almost like rotten eggs with like a strong stench of animal feces and urine. And he's walking, and he kind of stops and looks around, doesn't see anything, continues to walk and grabs his water jacket. Now, the whole way he could smell the smell, but as he got closer to the fence, the smell kind of got less potent. So as he's walking back to where Josh and his friends are sitting, he's coming through, and the smell starts to get stronger, And he's like, what is that stink? That wasn't here when we were here earlier. We only went to get Josh's little brother, yada, yada. So he goes back and he says, guys, there's a really foul stink. And Josh is like kind of put off by it, because this is his project, his Eagle Scout community project. This is going to put him from Life Scout to Eagle Scout. And when the kid describes the stench, does he think it's an animal, but he thinks that maybe someone dug up a grave and there's a body, a decomposing body. So he gets up and he starts to walk, and he's looking around the cemetery. Everyone else is sitting there. They're all having their lunch. And he's kind of walking, and he smells it. He catches it. And he's like, wow, that's really strong. But he keeps, walking, and he gets over to where the kid left his water jacket. And like his friend said, it got less as I got closer to this area. And then when I got here, it started, and he kind of did like, he kind of went in each direction, north, east, south. Well, he had just come from the southern part of the thing, so he went north, east, and so he's looking, and it's more pungent towards there's a highway on the opposite side of the cemetery. So Sam Crocker Cemetery sits kind of in between Highway Z and Highway 80. And Highway 80, or it's still Highway 80, but at one point it's like 2460 or 2466. So he kind of walks there, and he's like, maybe someone hit an animal. So he walks, and he kind of peers around, hops the fence, looks, nothing. There's nothing on the road. He looks down the road both ways, comes back into the cemetery, and he sees his friends and brother and his friend. They're now standing. He's about half a football field away from where his friends are. They're standing. When he walked past them, they were all sitting. It took him about 7-8 minutes, maybe 10, to get out to look at the road back, and then go back to where he was coming. And he's like, why is everyone standing up? You know, what is going on? And he can smell, the smell is just much more stronger now. So he's watching his friends and he keeps walking and they're yelling something. He can just make it out, like, hurry up, hurry up. And he has no idea what they're doing. He's like, what are they doing? Like, he at first thinks that, you know, everyone's done. His brother and his friend are being a jerk, like they want to go more, you know, fishing a little more and this and that. And so he gets probably halfway now to where they are, and he sees them. They're looking at him, and they're looking up towards some of the older headstones, and he sees this kind of dark silhouette, and it's in the wood line, kind of like standing there, pacing back and forth. And he's like, oh my God, that's the bear. That's the bear that my friend saw. So he's like, I can't run, because if it sees me running, even though I'm not running away from it, it's going to come down at me. Because, you know, this thing's north of him and his friends are straight across from him. So it's right in between them. So if he runs, he's thinking it's going to either get me or get them. So he's like, I'm just going to walk. I'm going to keep my eye on this thing and get to where my friends and my car is parked. And we'll just, you know, get in the car and wait it out, honk the horn, scare it, whatever. And so he starts walking, and as he's walking, he's keeping an eye on this thing, and it's going, you know, it's not going back and forth in a long pathway. It's more or less staying in between these kind of two larger trees with the backdrop of trees behind them. And as he gets probably 30 feet from his friends to where they are, he kind of says, get to the car. He yells, get to the car. And he sees quite clearly that this thing is bipedal. And by then he's like, that's not a bear. What is that? He sees that it's like a dark brownish black color. And he can't make out much more than that, except that it's, you know, it's got ears that are sticking up off of its head. Obviously, it hasn't, you know, gotten close to him, so he can't really get a lot of detail. He's getting what he can. As he yells, the thing stops. It's pacing, turns to face him, and drops to all fours and starts running through the cemetery, through the stones and stuff, the old headstones. Now he's takes off running, gets to their car, everyone piles in the car, or the older Jeep. It's not like a Jeep, it's an older Jeep Grand Caravan, just this old kind of wooden paneled door. It was just a beater that his granddad had, and he bought it off his grandfather for a couple $100. So everyone's in. His kid brother's in the back with his friend, and he starts the Jeep up, and to get out of the cemetery, the road 80 is closer, but you can't get out that way from where they are. There's no exit. They've got to go out through this kind of road it's a road, but it's not really a road. It's not a marked road. It's, it's a wooded road. And then it cuts into a field, and then, heads kind of north up onto 80. Because once you get out into the opening, there's a good length of this road that's surrounded by trees. And then you get to an opening and you've got to go kind of straight up to get to 80. So even though it would be faster if there was a road right there, but the creek is there. This Cordius Creek is right there. So they can't go that way. So as they're going down this wooded road, his little brother is crying and screaming, like, what is that? Oh my God, what is that? It's catching us. It's catching us. And he's, shut up, just let me drive, and as they're coming around this kind of corner, there's some rocks and some trees in the area, and he really has to kind of slow down. There's some old pine trees, old cut logs and stuff, and so he kind of like slows down. And as he's slowing, he's looking in his rear view, and he just sees this. He said it looked like a jet black German Shepherd like face. It was the size of a smaller pony, and he said it had these just stoplight red eyes. As he gets up around this, he's probably a mile from the entrance to 80. And he kind of forks it, and he doesn't see in his rear view this creature that's chasing him. His brother's crying. His brother's real young, 11, maybe 12. The friends are all screaming like, what the hell was that? Oh my God. And as he's can now see the entrance of 80, he sees this creature kind of cut across the field. And it looks like it's going to collide head on with their Jeep. And he's like, if I have to hit this thing, I'm going to hit it. That's just how it's going to be. As they get closer to each other, he said he saw this thing, and it was in slow motion. He said it jumped. It was in full stride. He said, and as it was in stride, he said it jumped. And it was slow motion. It just leapt. And when it landed on the hood of my Jeep. It was like, bam, right on the hood. He slams on his brakes. The thing falls off the Jeep and gets up and stands up in front of the Jeep. He's now, his friend who are in the front seat, his friends the two friends that are in the back, and his brother and his friend that are in the back are all now kind of looking at this creature that is now standing face to face with them. And Jeep's still running. There's nothing wrong with the Jeep. He's just stopped out of shock. Like, I just hit this animal, but it was the animal's fault. It jumped on my car, So Josh can see exactly what this thing looks like. He said it wasn't that much taller than I was. He said at the time I was maybe 5'10". He said, so maybe 6 foot. He said, maybe this thing was 6 foot. He said it looked like it weighed 200 pounds. All this like jet black, brown colored kind of mixed in together. head to toe. There was no white. There was no kind of any other coloration other than this jet black, dark brown color intermixed. They're looking at each other. Everyone's looking at this thing. And its eyes are, like he said, stop light red and just not glowing, but glowing. You could clearly see. He's like, how, in his head, he's thinking, how is this thing's eyes that color in the daytime? My lights aren't on. He's trying to process something that our brain is not meant to process, something that we are told we are not ever, supposed to know of. So, plus he's 16 years old, gonna be 17. And, the thing he's sitting there, got his foot on the brake, and he sees his friends are yelling, go, 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 He's in his head, do I hit this thing? What if I hit it and it ruins the Jeep? What if I hit it and it goes under the Jeep and ruins the bottom of the Jeep and we're stuck here? Or if I hit it and it goes through the front windshield? Because obviously he's thinking about deer. People have hit deer and people have gotten seriously hurt from hitting a deer because they've gone through their front windshield and stuff like that. And he kind of gives it a little gas and honks the horn to get it, thinking maybe it'll go away. I don't know what I'm seeing. He was a Cub Scout, Weeblo, Boy Scout, and dedicated, like super dedicated to being an Eagle Scout. Like that was his whole goal. He's like, I was one of those kids that, I was kind of popular in high school, but I wasn't really popular because I did play baseball, but everyone knew I was a Boy Scout, and so it was just, and he's like, what the hell? The thing snarls. He can't hear anything because his friends are screaming. The Jeep's running. But he sees its lips curl. And he said it was almost like the thing smiled at him. Like, it knew that I didn't know what to do. And it was happy with the situation that we were in. And it kind of did this smile at me. He said at that point, he honks again and takes his foot off the brake and gives it some gas. And the creature doesn't move. He drives up a little bit and stops again. So they're now closer to each other. And he's like, I'm kind of stuck at this point, Jeff. I'm kind of like, I don't want to hit it. I can't go, I can't, from the distance I am from this creature, if I do give it gas, I'm not going to kill it. I'm not going to hurt it. It's more or less probably a better chance that it hurts me and my friends and my brothers. My brother and his friend. So he goes, I made the only other decision that I could. He said, I put it in reverse and I punched it backwards. He said his friends are now in a panic because they're going backwards instead of forward toward the road. But the creature stares at him. And it's just staring at them. And he said that smile, that look that it had left its face. He said, and it was dropping to all fours. At that point, he said, I jammed it into drive and punched it. He said there was, dirt kicked up. And as I punched it, he said, I gave myself enough room to get a little bit of speed. You know, I wasn't going 30 miles an hour. He goes, I was going about 15. But I was gonna, you know, I was ready to collide into this thing. He said, as I started going towards it, it hit it all fours and kind of jumped towards the driver's side of where the Jeep would be. Didn't go over the Jeep, but just barely. They just missed each other. And he's now punching it towards the entrance to 80. His brother lets out this terrible and just very frightening scream. And he's like, it's on the back of the door. It's on the back of the door. And it was holding on to the back bumper and the rack of the Jeep. It had gotten behind him and was trying to climb up onto the Jeep. They hit 80, and there's a kind of a lump going out onto 80. And as they go out that way, they're coming up to where 80 kind of forks. There's farmland on one side. You can see Highway Z. And they're going to go. He's hoping that this thing just gets off the vehicle. Well, they get onto the road and it doesn't. It's still kind of holding on. He kind of veers out onto the highway. And as he's veering out, he sees the park ranger's truck coming towards them. So the ranger's truck, he can see the ranger's truck coming down Z, this highway Z. He's still on 80. He's got to turn. Now, the way to his house is back the other way on, so think of you're going north, and it's a very easy turn to continue to go north on Z. But where his house, where to get back to his home, you'd almost have to go south. And that's more of a, deeper angle to turn. So he's honking his horn. He's flicking his lights at the ranger. The ranger sees the truck, and he doesn't see what the rangers are doing. He just sees their truck coming towards them. And he's like, I don't know what to do at this point, because we're almost like head to head. I stop. He goes, and when I stop, he said, this thing jumps off the back of my Jeep. He said, and I punched it and went past the park ranger and got onto Highway Z. And he said, I continued to drive for 10 minutes at least. Well, then they realize, hey, we've got to turn around. We haven't seen this thing. It's not following us. We got to turn around and go that way back home. They don't want to, because they don't want to run into this thing again. So they do. They end up going up probably 2-3 miles and then turning around. And as they are coming towards where they had just pulled out, they see the ranger's truck there. Both rangers are out of the truck, and they're looking at something. And Josh kind of stops. And, he's like, well, what the heck happened? Maybe they got the bear or whatever this thing was. Because in his head at that point, he was like, part of me thought it was still like this just maybe rabid bear. I don't know. It looked and ran like a dog, but it was big like a bear. Not bulky like, a bear would be, like a 6-foot tall bear. But that's the only other thing he could think of. They pull up, and the park ranger that was standing on the passenger side comes walking up to Josh's window and says, it's probably best you boys get out of here now. We just put down this animal. We've got, our bosses are coming in to take care of this. We're not going to say that you were here or anything. Just go. And they said, all right, thank you, Josh. But all the kids are like, what was it? What was that thing? What was that thing? And they're driving down, and they're driving probably, 4 or 5 miles, and they see 3 park ranger trucks flying up the road, and a trooper car behind them. The police officer they pass, the ranger trucks go right up. Police officer kind of spins around, does a U-E, and pulls Josh and the boys over. At that point, Josh kind of just says, yeah, we were, up at Sam Crocker, and this bear or dog or whatever it was, tried attacking us. And the trooper looked at the boys and said, it was just a dog, guys. It was just, don't worry about it. Go about your business. And, he took everybody's name, address, and stuff like that, and just go. They're all talking about it, for a couple of days. They're just like, what do you think that thing was? The little brother's like, that was a werewolf. Did you see it? It was walking, on its, like a human. It was, it had a muzzle. They're confused. They don't, about 6-7 days go by, and Josh goes to meet up with his scout leader. And his scout master called him up and said, hey, Josh, great job on, everything at the cemetery. I heard there was a little bit of, come up to the house. I'd like to talk to you about everything. And let's get this, let's get this straightened out. Get you to where you can get your Eagle Scout badge. And, you did the work, but let's get it, figured out. So he's like, yeah, sure. He gets to the house, and he sees a park ranger vehicle and a black kind of suburban-like vehicle in his scoutmaster's yard. Now, he knows that his scoutmaster does not own a black Suburban. Wealth isn't something that was too big back then, where he lived. His scoutmaster had this old beat up truck that he drove around, and his wife had a beat up car. They just good people and lived hard, lived paycheck by paycheck. So he knew they couldn't afford this brand new Suburban that was in their driveway. So Josh pulls in and knocks at the door. His scoutmaster says, "Hey, bud, come on in. This, and that." And he said, "What's going on? Is this about the other day? He says, "Just come on in and, let's talk about your Eagle Scout badge and your community service hours that you have to, there's an X amount of hours and stuff that you have to achieve to get your badge, your Eagle Scout." So he's like, "All right." And he's very kind of like hesitant, but he's known his scoutmaster for years, so he trusts him. And they go into his kitchen. The park ranger is sitting at the kitchen table, and there's a female in like a pantsuit and two other males in suits. One of the guy has glasses. The other guy is just, about 6'1", 6'2". He said he really didn't look like he belonged in a suit. He was just a bigger guy. He said he just didn't look, the suit just didn't suit him, if you know what I mean. And so when they get in, he's told, not asked, told to sit down. The scoutmaster's home has these kind of like benches at their kitchen table. So it's kind of like a rustic kind of kitchen table, and he sits down at the bench. The park ranger's sitting in front of him. The scoutmaster sits next to the park ranger. The female sits next to the park ranger on the other side. And these two men sit right beside Josh on either side of him. And the park ranger says, "Hey, Josh, how are you? Are you guys okay? Was there any damage to your Jeep that needs to be taken care of? Any scratches, any kind of, hair? Was there anything there? Any kind of debris from this animal that you seen at the park that day, or the cemetery that day?" And he's like, No. I just, what's going on? Am I getting, he's like, he thinks he's going to be arrested, and he was brought there under kind of false pretense. So he's kind of looking at his scoutmaster like, help me. At that point, the female gets up and goes outside. And with like this clipboard kind of thing, the two men in these suits are sitting there, and the smaller of the two, the one in glasses, kind of pats him on his back and says, I was an Eagle Scout myself. It's a wonderful achievement, And the other guy says, you're going to be an Eagle Scout. There's no more that you have to do. There's nothing more that you have to do. You've met your required everything. And Josh knows in his head that he's still got, hours and he didn't fully do what his community project was supposed to be, because there's a guide thing that you lay out. And it's handed to the scoutmaster. The scoutmaster then hands it to the council and stuff like that. And it goes up the line. And the larger guy who didn't belong in the suit just says, we're here now to make sure that you get your Eagle Scout badge right now. Thing of the matter is you have one last thing to do. And he's now scared because he's like, well, kind of what? Where'd this lady go? And now I'm stuck between you two, and my scoutmaster, who I trust, is across the table, and a park ranger who I'm fairly familiar with is that, and the scoutmaster has this kind of like a large envelope and slides it, and the gentleman in glasses says, open that up. And sure enough, it's his Eagle Scout and all the paperwork that goes with it and everything like that, the certificate and stuff. And the larger guy in the suit says, we're giving you this today because we know that you are trustworthy and you cannot tell anyone what occurred that day at the cemetery. And you have to let your friends know exactly what happened. That, you guys saw a bear and you guys got spooked and left. You never saw it run bipedally. You never saw it stand bipedally. And you didn't see that these park rangers had put it down. That's all you need to know. And you need to tell your friends the same thing we're telling you. Otherwise, we will come back. Instead of having you come here, we will come to your home. We will come to your home. We will take your Eagle Scout. We will also take you and bring you with us and your friends, your brother, his friend. And they named them. They named every person that was in that Jeep. Josh is thinking, how the hell does, he know everybody that was in the Jeep? And he's thinking it. And, a couple months go by and he puts it together that state trooper had asked them for all of their information. What's your name? Of course, everyone's going to say it. They're good kids. They're Boy Scouts. And they just had some traumatic incident happen. They're not going to give any kind of false information. They're shitting their pants. Pardon the French. I always wanted to say that. Pardon the French. It's so stupid. Josh says, I understand 100%. I understand. And they talk a couple more minutes, nothing really too major. Gets his packet, his envelope there, and starts to, he says, can I please go home now? Am I okay? And the one larger guy said, yeah, you can go home. Yep. Just remember what the conversation was here. You don't want to see us at your house, nor does your friends, your family, and their family. This conversation won't be what it is today. And as this guy's saying this to Josh, he's looking at his scoutmaster. Like, who are these people? What did you. And his scoutmaster just puts his head down and can't look at him at all. He goes back and tells everybody what they can and can't say and this and that. Shortly thereafter, his scoutmaster and his wife moved out of the location, out of the area, and he had never seen him again. He had tried to look for him on social media and everything just to kind of clarify a few things, and has never been able to find him. Thinks that, in his heart of hearts, thinks that he was forced to move because he knew what went on. And he's like, I think they moved my scoutmaster, so in case I ever said something, there was nobody there to deny or validate what I was saying. And that was his experience, It's crazy because then he goes, Jeff, I hear about these creatures that are 7-8 feet tall, and that wasn't the case. He said this thing was much smaller. Like he said, he's like, I was only a couple of inches taller than me, if that. And years went by, and he asked his little brother about, that day. And his little brother said it looked like a demon dog, a hellhound, was chasing us when I was in the back. He said, I looked out that back window, and he goes, all I could see was this monstrous jet black dog with red eyes chasing this Jeep. He said, I was afraid it was going to come through the back windshield and, take me and my friend. And, so incredible experience. I can't imagine having something like that happen. He had plans to do more with the scouts and stuff like that, and kind of just it petered off. It was something that he didn't ever want to do. His little brother was a Weeblo, and Josh kind of convinced him to stay out of the Weeblos, tell his mom and dad that he didn't want to, partake in anything anymore with the Boy Scouts. And, so it was just crazy. Real messed him up because he's held on to this thing for years. But we talked, and he thinks, and I think that what he ran into was, a young Dogman, maybe not fully grown. He said, I just don't know where it was when we were smelling it. Was it in the trees watching us? Did it follow us, like, when we went to get my little brother and, this and that? Like, what happened? And it's all been just this kind of something that's weighed heavily on his shoulders for years. So he reached out and wanted to share. And there you have it, folks. I do hope you all enjoyed tonight's second half as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. I'd like to thank you for supporting the channel. It is your support that helps the channel to continue to grow and go. And honestly, what gives us all a place and a chance to share our experiences and theories judgment-free. Everyone is simply treated with the respect that we deserve. Please stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, pets, family, and our friends. These creatures are real. They are out there, and they are dangerous. Share this information with those you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions, never stop searching for the truth, and God bless you all.